Boris Johnson to make no deal Brexit a legal option. He also makes a move against the TV license, and we celebrate this channel reaching 100,000 subscribers. Right, welcome everyone to today's show. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to Brexit and the government's plans. But before we start, I want to say a huge thank you again to all of you for supporting this channel. As of this morning, we have finally reached 100,000 subscribers. And obviously, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you guys. And I want to say a big thank you to some of my closest friends for helping me out. Alice, Alexandra, Sophia, thanks for listening to my rants and random ideas. And sorry for that. So let's begin. But also watch towards the end of the video because we have a big announcement now that we have reached 100k subscribers. We're going to have a big event organized. So keep watching and we'll give you the announcement. Now, Boris Johnson, a lot of hard Brexiteers during the election were saying, well, we can't let Boris get a majority because that means who's going to hold him to account, and that means he's going to play softball with the EU. Well, in reality, as I said, I told them it makes absolutely no sense because if he has a majority, a proper Tory majority, then that's when he can play hardball. And it's been proven that I was right. Boris Johnson is now planning to enshrine in law the WTO or no deal Brexit as an option, so that basically his plan is to pass his withdrawal agreement bill by the end of January that's coming up. And that means we'll leave the EU on the 31st of January. Then we have an 11-month implementation period. During this time, the UK and the EU will negotiate a free trade agreement. And what Boris wants to do is, in order to basically force the European Union's hands to make sure they do come back to us quickly, is to basically put it in law that we will leave without extending the transition period. We can just trade on WTO terms until you guys are ready to sign a trade deal. Boris wants to sign a Canada-style free trade agreement with no political alignment, and that's the best option, to be fair. Let's just see what the European Union does. And this has caused the EU to start panicking. They said that because they know that they're in trouble, and Brussels are the bureaucrats in Brussels are alarmed that Boris can now play hardball. This is what one of the German MPs has admitted. Now, the interesting fact about this is that this sort of style of negotiating, especially with the European Union, is actually quite familiar. This is what President Trump does. Donald Trump has this style of playing hardball from day one, and to show that he's absolutely willing to walk away. And Boris Johnson is basically either intentionally or unintentionally has learned from President Trump in terms of how to deal with the European Union, because Theresa May, since 2016, did the exact opposite. I don't think it was actually on purpose. She just didn't realize, and she had terrible advisors, and all the civil servants were absolutely terrible, and some of them didn't want Brexit to happen, but they sent her to Brussels basically begging and saying, oh, I don't want to leave, that people voted to leave, can we make this the most bureaucratic process ever? And didn't work. So this time Boris has this new hardball plan, so let's see how it goes. But it's not the only thing that he's doing in a very robust way already. It's been 2 minutes since he's been Prime Minister with a majority government. He's also going after the BBC and the TV license. Well, Boris Johnson is now planning to order a shake-up of the BBC's license fee. The Prime Minister has ordered his aides to launch an urgent review into decriminalising the BBC license fee in the wake of his resounding election triumph. Boris has asked his aides to now draw up a review of the mandatory £154.50 annual fee, and this is according to the Sunday Telegraph, because the paper reported that Downing Street is now preparing to launch this formal consultation on whether viewers should be prosecuted for failing to pay that £154 annual cost for watching live TV or BBC's iPlayer catch-up service. Now, this is interesting because this is the first step when it comes to reforming the license fee and the whole concept of the BBC. Obviously, he couldn't really go out there tomorrow and say, you know what, guys, you're abolished, everyone's free, because there will be a huge backlash and he has to deal with that. So this is a good step. This is literally to start giving back people's freedoms. If they don't want to use it, don't force them to pay something. It's a TV tax at the end of the day, and we're paying for something, a service that most of the time when it comes to BBC News a lot of the people involved, they're not really completely professional or unbiased or neutral. So we'll see how this goes, because this has started basically since the election campaign, when some of the presenters and some producers didn't really behave properly, including Andrew Marr. Well, the BBC are now in fresh row over political bias as viewers slam Andrew Marr when he clashed with Boris Johnson. The BBC bosses are now facing another impartiality row after more than 12,000 furious viewers complained about Andrew Marr's TV interview with Boris Johnson during the election. The corporation's latest complaints bulletin showed a record-breaking 12,172 people felt that the encounter on Mr. Marr's BBC One show on the 1st of December was biased against Mr. Johnson. The BBC tried to defend itself by insisting that the interview was part of the cut and thrust of politics and would be the case whoever Andrew was facing. I mean, sure, yeah, absolutely. We saw Andrew Marr interviewing others at the other side, and yeah, it wasn't the same. That specific interview, it's not necessarily an anti-Tory sort of thing. It was definitely an anti-Boris thing. I'm pretty sure he's got some personal vendetta against Boris Johnson. And he couldn't really control his emotions. It's not a smart thing to do, but it's not just Andrew Marr, because we have the BBC Radio 4's flagship programme, the Today programme, also misbehaving. Well, the Tories are now pulling their ministers from Radio 4's Today programme because of the new row. The Downing Street chiefs are boycotting BBC Radio 4's flagship Today programme amid growing anger at the corporation's general election coverage. Number 10 refused to put forward ministers for Friday morning's broadcast and vowed to withdraw engagement from future editions while calling for an inquiry into allegations of political bias. The standoff is the latest spat in an increasingly bitter row over the BBC's impartiality in the run-up to the elections. A Downing Street source said the BBC speaks to a pro-Remain metropolitan bubble in Islington, not the real world represented by Wakefield and Workington. There has been a failure by senior management at the BBC, and we expect them to launch an internal review of their performance. Well, that's gonna hurt. So let's see what the BBC bosses actually do about this. Otherwise, they might start losing their license fees and the money that they're getting from us, the TV tax. So I know that a lot of people have already stopped paying their license fee. So this is probably good news for you guys if you have, because that means Boris is behind you, is taking your side. They can't really come after you anymore. So let's just see how that goes. On the other hand, we do have the election for the Labour leadership coming up, and we're going to have some news about that tomorrow as an update. So if you haven't obviously subscribed to the channel, make sure you subscribe and click on that bell next to it so you get notified. As most of you know, videos come out every day at 5:45 p.m. Now, for that big announcement, obviously now that we have the 100,000 subscribers, as promised, I'm going to organise a big event and big party in London. The first one in January, to obviously celebrate this, to say thank you to you guys, but also for Brexit, to get ready to celebrate Brexit in January. For this event, I'm going to be inviting a couple of MPs and some other people in the kind of media, public figures as guests to come and meet you guys as well, say something. So what I'm going to be doing is, for the next few days, I'm going to basically plan this somehow, and I'll let you guys know when it's ready and send you a link so that you could actually sign up to this event. And if you want to support this channel, we still have the merchandise site. You could check it out. The link is in the description. We have the People's Prime Minister t-shirts. We also have the new All I Want for Christmas is Brexit. It's a limited edition just for this month. If you haven't done your Christmas shopping, this is probably a good idea for your friends or family members. The link is in the description. As always, I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys in the next video.